Spinning wing decoys, do you love them? Do you hate them? Do they work for you? If you don't use spinning wing decoys, does that mean you're old school? We're going to talk about that one, as well as share some spinning wing strategies, this time on Surviving Duck Season.
Surviving Duck Season, offering you the best waterfowl content. Subscribe to this channel, click the notification bell, and don't miss any of our great content. Presented by Mojo Outdoors.
Hey everybody, I'm Joel Strickland. Thanks for watching. And I want to start off by saying thanks so much for all the comments on the last video. We had a lot of them. Really, I appreciate all the comments from all the videos we've been doing here the last several months. So much encouragement. I really appreciate it. Lots of good suggestions on some things that you'd like to see us talk about and some things you'd like to see us do here on the channel. So we're going to be doing that here in the near future. I want to give a quick shout out to my new friend Joseph Billings. He says, I was the first view, like, and comment. Thanks, brother. Also, at the end of this video today, I have a special fun announcement that I'm going to share with you, so please stick around for that too. Alright, so today's video is a follow-up video from last week. I posted a video about my very first duck hunt with the spinning wing decoys in 1997. It's a really cool video with some really neat footage. If you haven't seen that yet, make sure you check it out. So most of you know that this channel is sponsored by Mojo, which makes spinning wing decoys and other really effective products. And so I want you to understand that this is not intended to be a commercial for Mojo or anything like that. This is really intended to give you some, suggestions, solutions on how to do some things and how to use the product effectively. Whether you've got a Mojo or some other type of spinning wing decoys already, or it may be a solution for you with a product in the future to help you have a better hunt. So the majority of the comments that I got last week from the video, we got tons of them. I mean, I don't know, there's probably like 50 or 60 on the YouTube video, and then it got shared a whole bunch on Facebook. And so, there's like, I don't know, 3 or 4 or 5 groups, and I don't know, there's probably at least 100 comments in some of those. So I went through and looked at every single one, read them all. A lot of really good information. It seems like most people use them. A lot of people who've used them for a long time say they don't work as good as they used to. Get a few people say they don't use them anymore. A lot of guys offering some of the same advice that I'm going to be sharing today, things that work for us as well. Another question asked about why ducks don't respond like they used to. Why was it so good way back and why isn't it so good here? Well, I'm going to give you kind of my thoughts and experiences over the last 20-something years. Back in 1997, 98, when virtually nobody was using them, I mean, it was unbelievable. I mean, the few people that were using them, it was almost a guaranteed limit. I mean, you just stuck them out there and here they came. The 1999 season was the first year that there was widespread usage of them all the way across North America. And that was probably when we started seeing a little bit of difference in how good they worked. From Canada all the way down to the south, there were hunters using them. And so therefore, because of that pressure, it wasn't quite as effective. But it wasn't until the next year we really saw a marked difference. I remember in January of 2001, we'd been trying to use them all year, and it's like, what happened? They were working, and now they're really not working very good. And so we started adding to the amount of decoys that we use. I remember one day there was a whole group of us sitting around talking. It's like, well, why don't we try like putting a whole bunch of them out? How many do you have? Well, I've got 4. Well, I've got 2. Well, I've got 3. Before you know it, we had 11 of them. We took them out the next day, and it worked just like the very first time you ever use one. The ducks react to the hunting pressure. Lots of people do one thing, the birds kind of figure out the deal, then it's our turn to make an adjustment to be successful. It's no different than any other tool we use. A spinning wing decoys is a tool, just like a call, just like your decoys and other devices. You have to use them properly. If you don't, then it sometimes doesn't work. Just because you blow a duck call doesn't mean that ducks are going to land at your feet every time you blow it. Same thing with spinning wing decoys. You have to use them properly. I'm a duck hunting guide in Arkansas in one of the most heavily pressured duck hunting areas on the planet. Okay, and I use spinning wing decoys pretty much every day, and I have success with them very often. Now notice, I didn't say that they work every single time I put them out. It's like anything else. Sometimes they have their days where they work really, really well. Sometimes they don't work as well. I'm not using them to get ducks close enough for a shot. I mean, I guess in reality I am, but I'm not sky busting. I'm not shooting 40-yard shots. What we do is we try to, like everybody, we're trying to get them to finish. We're trying to get them to land in the decoys, and we have a lot of success with it. I mean, most of the time we're trying to take shots at 15 to 25 yards. My normal everyday setup is usually about 3 or 4 dozen decoys, 1 mojo, sometimes 2, my duck call, and a jerk rig. And occasionally I'll also throw in maybe some flock of flickers or something else like that. But that's pretty much what I use every single day. It's really no big mystery how to be successful using spinning wings decoys. So let's talk about what it is a spinning wing decoy is for. I mean, spinning wing decoys are supposed to look like ducks landing, the flash that the wings have of when a duck lands, and ducks can see that from a really, really long way away. In fact, when they're flying in the air, they're looking, for a place to land or look for a place to feed. If they're new to the area, they're looking for flashes of their buddies congregating, and that's how they know where to go, and that's how they can see from such a long way away. And that's the effectiveness of what a mojo does. Those big wings spinning, can be seen for well over a mile away. The very first thing I noticed that was so dumbfounding to me, 20 years ago, was they would come from the stratosphere. They'd be wingtips almost touching, coming straight down, because those spinning wings were like, hypnotizing them, and they just could not resist. It was like a magnet. The difference today is they come into maybe 100 yards and they start circling, and that's when a lot of people, see failure in, in their hunting setup. And it's not because, well, mojos don't work anymore. No. How do I keep ducks from doing the spinner dance, the mojo dance that's 60, 70 yards spinning and never get closer? My favorite way to use a mojo, 2 things. One is put it in cover. That's the number one thing I share with anybody when they say, how do I use a mojo? I say put it next to cover. What I mean is, if you got a tree, a bush, a clump of weeds, I don't care if they just stick up a little bit, get that mojo down there in it, and let that be a little bit of a block. That way when the ducks are flying around, they circle. If they can get something between them and the mojo, it stops the spinning for just a minute. And that sometimes is all you need. Sometimes I'll put the mojo right next to the blind, and I'm talking like 3 feet from the blind. And so that when the ducks circle around behind us or off to the one side or the other, that the mojo is not there anymore. Why does it happen? They have witnessed a shooting, by one of their buddies got shot when they got too close to a spinning wing decoy. And they realize that if that thing is non-stop spinning, that it's got to be, it's got to be danger. As more and more birds encounter hunters, whether it's with, mojos or, just a guy with a duck call and decoys, the more times that he witnesses his buddies being killed or he gets shot at himself, then the next time he visits a hunter spread, it's got to be that much harder for that guy to get the duck. If you have a big flurry of action right at shooting time, that's when you for sure want to have mojos out, because they'll come right to them. And a lot of times you got to be careful not to shoot the mojo. After that, my experience is they seem to do better after the sun gets up and hits the decoy. Cloudy days are tough in general for duck hunting, and it's no different with spinning wing decoys. They're not as effective on cloudy days as they are sunny days, because again, the flash, that sun popping those white side of the wings, is really what attracts the birds. I think one reason why so many duck hunters go home empty-handed or not having a great day is because they're not willing to make some changes. And, you know, sometimes you got to move your decoys. Sometimes you got to move your mojo. Sometimes you have to change your calling or change your call. Maybe you need to move to another blind or move the blind to another location or something like that. You know, you got to be willing to get out there and move stuff around. I do it nearly every hunt. I'm moving something. I'm changing something up. You got to be proactive in the way that you run your hunt. It's so important if you want to be successful. I'll move my mojos sometimes a couple of times during the hunt because the birds key in on them at different times, whether it's because of sunshine or relation to cover. Some days they work really, really great out in the wide open in the middle of your spread. Sometimes they work better when they're closer to cover. Especially later in the season, I find it's very important to make sure that I keep it close to cover. What happens a lot of times, the way the wind is blowing today, the ducks are setting up over these trees and coming in. Well, they're not going to land right here because they don't have enough room to land right here. They're going to land out here. But what will happen is if they pass over this, they'll key in on it, but they can't land here, and then they'll move on and land past it. So that's one strategy I like to use. Another thing I do, along with putting them in cover, is I use the mojos with a remote. That's really, really important because then you have the option of turning it off. One of the most effective things that I like to do is, you know, as soon as the duck is, you know, coming in and he starts to make a circle, I will turn it off and wait till he gets downwind and sets up to come in. When he's just about the time that he gets turned and lined up to come in, and, you know, he may be 60, 80, maybe 100 yards out, I'll flip it on for just maybe 2 seconds where it spins and then it goes off. And a lot of times that's just enough to suck those ducks right in. For those of you hunting in public areas, spinners can be super effective for you. You know, you're in competition with a lot of people and most of the guys out there have a spinner. So what happens if somebody sets up 200 yards from you, they've got a spinner and you don't? Well, you know, they're sucking every duck over there right to them. They may not shoot everything, but you're not going to get as many ducks either because they're distracting your birds. Now I'm going to read a few of your comments about spinners. Cody Wolf says, we use 20 plus and 2 vortex machines. That's a lot of spinners and a lot of work. Evidently back in the day, in the late 90s, there were a few holdouts, guys that didn't get in on the action. Just like my buddy Elliot with freelance duck hunting. He says, good stuff. Unfortunately for me, I held out and didn't get a spinner until around the year 2000. I missed the golden years. I keep hearing that they sometimes flare ducks, but that's not my personal experience. Every time I try to pull the spinner, the situation gets worse, not better. We feel the same way. There's even a couple of guys that made comments about not using mojos because they hunt old school. Look, I get it. You know, sometimes we have so many things going on in our spread that it looks like we're hunting in a 3-ring circus. You know, sometimes you just don't want to have all those contraptions out there. You don't want to be, you know, having the extra things to carry with you and you got to plug this in and all that. Makes sense. I get it. But to say I'm old school, I'll tell you about old school. I grew up in the 70s and 80s and I hunted old school. We didn't have camouflage. I had canvas waders that you couldn't even walk in and you nearly froze to death in. My hunting jacket was my dad's old green army coat. We don't have these little, you know, toasty toes and hand warmers that you just rip it open and shake it and it was hot. I mean, we had these little things that you lit this little gray bar and then you caught it on fire and then you close it up and then it just smoldered in there and then it eventually warmed you up a little bit. We didn't have 4-wheelers. We did have 3-wheelers, but have you ever tried taking a 3-wheeler across a muddy bean field? No UTVs, no mud motors, no battery operated decoys. Advances in insulated waterproof clothing, camouflage, transportation, ammunition, decoys, I can go on, have made us more effective as hunters because we can stay out and hunt longer, we can get to where we want to go to, and because of the devices that we have now, we're able to bring more ducks into our location where we're hunting. So if you're going to go old school, I say don't just leave out the spinning wing decoys. I say you got to go all in. No $1,000 waders, no $400 hunting coats, no flock decoys, and you got to walk to where you're hunting. If you can do all that, then you're hunting old school. Hope you've enjoyed this video. I hope that you take away some pointers that will help you be a better hunter, have some success using spinning wing decoys. You know, again, don't be afraid to move around, do some unconventional things, get them in cover, use a remote, or get them on a timer, and it'll help you be a better hunter and be more successful. Now, I've got an announcement that I want to make. I told you I was going to do that. As many of you know, when it's not duck hunting season, I'm a director and producer in the film and television industry, and I've got a project that I've just completed that I think many of you will really be interested in seeing. It's a music video for a good friend of mine named Kevin Blake Weldon. Now, he is the king of hunting comedy music, and I've done a bunch of music videos for him in the past. The newest one that we've just released is called Should Have Been Here Yesterday. It was a lot of fun to make. It's really funny, and it's on my other YouTube channel, Mr. Producer Sir. So I hope you guys will all check that out and let us know what you think about it. Okay, final question of the day. Would you go old school? I mean real old school like we talked about earlier. If you would, leave it in the comments below. Let me know what you think. Until next time, I'm Joel Strickland. God bless and good hunting.
Surviving Duck Season, presented by Mojo Outdoors. Also brought to you by High and Dry and RoveItRacks.com.